So welcome to another educational and inspiring AAM workshop. This workshop is entitled Effective Animal Advocacy on Social Media Using Storytelling and More. John Oberg, social media influencer, explores how animal advocates can effectively use the tools at their fingertips, literally the social media platforms that most of us use actively every single day to create a kinder world for animals. So my name is Michelle Granberg, and I'm your moderator. I'm a mentor and team member with Animal Activism Mentorship. I'm located in New Jersey, and I've been a vegan and activist for 6 years. AAM's mission is to eradicate violence and build a culture of empathy and compassion, which ultimately leads to animal liberation. We strive to build a global community of activists through our free online 3-month mentorship program that pairs experienced activists with aspiring activists. Through one-on-one mentoring, we intend to generate an increased number of effective activists worldwide because we know this movement needs more activists. Additionally, we offer free workshops that train and educate our mentors, mentees, and the public on various aspects of animal rights activism. We have a podcast called the Animal Liberation Hour, and we host large-scale in-person activism events around the country. AAM is proud to be fueled by FARM, the Farmed Animal Rights Movement, one of the oldest AR organizations in the country. If you're interested in applying to become a mentor or mentee or want to get involved or to donate, please visit our website, animalactivismmentorship.com, and follow both AAM and FARM on social media. Okay, so that being said, I have the pleasure to introduce our guest speaker. John Oberg is a social media influencer and animal advocate dedicated to making the world a kinder place for animals by utilizing the power of social media and redefining animal advocacy in the social networking space. Previously, he served as director of new media for the Humane League and as director of communications for Vegan Outreach. Since launching his project, he has accumulated hundreds of millions of views of his content across social media. He recently launched 3 online courses focused on social media advocacy through the online educational platform Advocacy Collaborative. And you can visit John's official website at johnoberg.org. So we'll open up for questions and answers after the presentation. So please hold your questions until then, and then you'll have a chance to ask your questions for John. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to John. Go ahead, take it away.
Hey, thanks so much, Michelle. Thank you all for being here. And if anybody thinks I'm too dark, just let me know, because the sun just started setting, and I've been depending on the daylight for a while. So I'll just switch to artificial light when it becomes too dark. But somebody's got to let me know. But it is great to be here with such esteemed animal heroes like yourselves. I think it's really amazing that you all spend time out of your busy days and busy schedules to learn how to be more effective animal activists. The animals don't have a lot of people out there speaking up for them. And then of the people who are, not a lot of them even really, go out of their way to improve their advocacy. So because you all are here, you're all doing that. And I'm honored to be here presenting to all of you. So I'm going to share my screen now. All right, does it look good? Cool. Thank you, Kim, for the head shake. Cool. So as I said, my name is John Oberg. There's some links to my social media channels, my email address, and should anybody want to support me financially, my work is fueled by patrons. Patreon.com/John Oberg. So thank you again for being here. It's real cool to learn more about animal activism mentorship. I really love what you all are doing. Michelle and the team have done amazing work here, and I think it's Michelle and Trey and the rest of the team. And I think there aren't enough people out there who are doing work that is so focused on being more effective. And it's something that all of us can do all the time. So I am going to get started in 1 second. I just peeked up at myself and I definitely look pretty dark. So let me just turn my light on. Cool. So I want to talk to you about how I got my start in animal advocacy. So this is me as a 10-ish year old in Detroit, Michigan, where I'm from. And I saw that somebody here is from Michigan, which is awesome. So hey, Michigan, do the mitten. So I got my start in animal advocacy with my mom. My mom was a true badass for the animals. She taught me to be kind to animals. She taught me compassion for animals. She taught me to speak up for the vulnerable. And what you're seeing here is a picture I took with my phone of a VCR tape being played on the television, a VCR tape of a recording from, I think, like 1998 or 99, of my mom and I protesting a deer hunt. And she really just instilled this love for animals in me. And that is what really led me to become the activist I am today. So let's fast forward a bit. And I went from protesting deer hunts with my mom to not doing much animal activism for many, many years until I became a vegan in 2009. October 19th, 2009 is my vegan anniversary. So coming up on 13 years next month. And I got my start doing various forms of advocacy in where I was going to college in Arizona. I was going to Arizona State University. Actually, on the right, that is Arizona State University. And so I looked at the different forms of advocacy that were out there. And I thought, you know what? Leafletting seems pretty fun. Let me give that a shot. And so I did different kinds of things. I did vegan food giveaways. I did pay-per-views where we pay people $1 to watch a video. I did circus protests. I did various protests, standing with signs outside stores. And I did leafletting. And personally, what spoke to me the most at the time was leafletting. It was pretty cool that I could spend a few hours of handing out leaflets on college campuses or on street corners. And at the end of the day, I could look back and think, hey, I reached dozens or hundreds of people who otherwise wouldn't have thought about animal advocacy that day. Or they wouldn't have thought about how farm animals are being treated or about the great vegan food that is out there. So I started leafletting and I loved it. Okay. I loved it. And then what happened was I had sort of a shift. I was traveling around North America in 2013 for vegan outreach, handing out lots and lots of leaflets at college campuses and so on. Actually, in 1 year, I handed out 250,000 leaflets and I loved it. But my mom got sick with cancer. And so I had to take a hiatus from my job. And I obviously couldn't be traveling around if I was going to take care of her full time. So I took care of her and they actually gave her 6 to 9 months to live. But she lived for 2.5 years because she was such a badass. And I love her and I miss her every single day. But in that time when I was taking care of her, Vegan Outreach were nice enough to allow me to do some computer work for them. And they said, hey, John, the opportunity is here to take over the social media for Vegan Outreach. Do you want to do it? And I kind of reluctantly said yes. And I was like, I'm not, obviously I can't travel around going to colleges, but I guess I could do some stuff on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and so on. And so I took over the social media for Vegan Outreach. And I very quickly realized that I could do as much good for animals in a single day as I could in a lifetime of handing out leaflets. And I realized, wow, social media is powerful. So that is what, fast forward to today, this is what my animal activism looks these days. Me looking at screens most of the time. Usually not as angry as I look in these photos. I'm not sure why I look so angry, but I am often looking at screens, doing stuff on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and so on. And social media is where I focus my advocacy these days, because that is where I can make the biggest difference for animals. So throughout this presentation, it should be about 45, 50 minutes. And then the remainder will be dedicated to questions and answers. Feel free to take notes during this. Feel free to take pictures of the screen. Feel free to scribble down notes, whatever you feel necessary to absorb the information, because some of this stuff is going to be kind of overarching general concepts, and some of it's going to be kind of in the weeds details about social media advocacy. So feel free to take notes. So first of all, what are the benefits of using social media for outreach? Well, for one, education. Education is huge. Just like I viewed doing leafletting and college campuses as educating the people who are receiving the leaflets, using social media for advocacy is raising awareness about these important issues to the general public, to the people on social media. And guess what? Almost everybody is on social media. So that is the general public. You are reaching a huge swath of the population, and you are raising awareness and inspiring change. You are inspiring people to take animal advocacy more seriously. You're teaching them about how animals are being raised for food, about the cruel experiments going on to animals behind the closed doors of these places. And additionally, what else is good for social media? Brand building. So building up your own account, your own brand name to make a difference for animals. Campaigning for specific ideas. So for example, if you want your favorite local pizza chain to carry vegan cheese, social media is a great way to campaign. Like, yeah, you can call them and ask for it, but they might just say, oh, that's a cool idea, and then hang up and never think about it again. That still is a good idea, but there's a good chance that they might not do anything. Well, social media is kind of where you can take that campaigning to the next level. You can really pile on the pressure by using social media for campaigning, especially if you're teaming up with others. Then, of course, another big benefit of social media is networking. And what do I mean by networking? I mean connecting with other like-minded people, whether that's people in your community already or people that you are just bringing into your community, maybe potential other future vegans. And many of you are involved with animal activism mentorship. So of course, mentorship, networking go hand in hand. And the potential of social media is boundless. So in my course of doing social media advocacy and in my years of doing it, posts that I've seen or posts that I've done on social media have been seen hundreds of millions of times for an average of about 50,000 views every single day. And this is not magic, okay? There's no PhD in social media science required to do this. I am just a regular person who looked at what was working on social media and what wasn't. This isn't the result of paid ads. This is me just spending years kind of tweaking my approach and building my presence over time. And you can do the same thing. Also, I think somebody just unmuted themselves. Maybe if they want to mute themselves, that might be a good idea. So you could also, potentially spend endless hours on social media engaging in outreach and advocacy. You don't have to, but the potential is there. And I actually don't recommend spending every hour of every day doing that, because that's a good case for burnout, and we don't want anybody to burn out. But there is just so much potential for social media and the amount of engagement and advocacy you can do on the platform. And of course, I want to mention that social media is an excellent supplemental form of advocacy to the advocacy you're already doing on the ground. So I know a lot of you are doing street activism, and street activism, again, is where I got my start. And I love doing street activism. I do it once in a blue moon nowadays, but I do love it when I do it. And if you are doing a lot of street activism or some other sort of in-person activism, social media is a great way to do additional activism. So you could tack it on to the work you're doing, but it's also a great place to amplify the work that you're doing. So if you are somebody who's going to maybe street corners and handing out pamphlets to talk about animal abuse, then talk about that on social media. Post a video of you doing this, and you're going to reach even more people. So when you're looking at social media advocacy, there are two important metrics to pay attention to. And keep in mind, social media companies throw so much information at you, so many metrics out there, but really almost everything boils down to these two important metrics: growth and reach. Growth is the number of followers, essentially like how big your audience is growing, and specifically how big your following is growing. So let's say on Twitter today, you have 45 followers. Well, let's say by the end of the year, you have 100 followers. You've grown by 55 followers. So the benefit to having more followers is that it means more people to see your future posts. And what does that mean? That means more people to share your future posts. And why is sharing so important? Well, that brings us to the next metric, which is reach. So many people maybe don't think as much about the importance of reach as they should. And the importance of reach is vital to creating a better world for animals, because because reach is how many people are seeing your content. So when you post a video of a pig in a factory farm on Facebook, you're obviously going to make more of an impact for that pig and for all farm animals. Sorry, somebody just unmuted themselves again, and it was just made some noise. Anyway, when you post something to Facebook and they are when you are getting that post seen by a lot of people, you're making a bigger difference for animals. And so more reach equals more eyeballs on your posts, which equals more shares and retweets of your content. And that means more impact for animals. Furthermore, the more shares your posts get, the more reach, the more people outside your bubble will see your content. And so if you're watching this, there's a decent chance that a decent portion of your friends and followers on social media are already vegan. And I think it's still good to reach other vegans for some reason or for various reasons, but the real important people that we want to reach are the non-vegans out there. And by getting more shares of your content, it goes further and further outside of your bubble. And that means that you're reaching more of the people that you need to be reaching to make the biggest impact for animals, because vegans can't get any more vegan. It's the non-vegans we really have to focus on. So let's talk about effective strategy in the age of social media. So first of all, you have to figure out what you want to get out of social media. So figure out what your niche is, where your interests overlap with your skills, and you want to set goals for yourself in terms of engagement and growth. And so you essentially want to think, okay, I used that example earlier of 45 Twitter followers. Maybe make it your goal by the end of the year to reach 100 Twitter followers. And so set expectations for yourself so you have something to work towards and something to get excited about. Manage your expectations, because social media growth and progress is very slow in the beginning, but with consistency, you will get there. I have over 100,000 followers on Twitter, but it took me a hell of a long time to get there. It took me, 5 or 6 years of doing consistent Twitter advocacy just about every single day for years. Okay. So you can do the same thing. Maybe don't make it your goal to get 100,000 followers. I don't want you to be disappointed when you don't get that right away, but make it your goal to go from 50 followers to 100 followers, or 100 to 500. Whatever the goal is, really go for it, but also have patience. And remember that effective strategy keeps in mind the rule that it's you versus the algorithm. So what is the algorithm? Algorithms are essentially mathematical formulas that social media companies have developed to control what content you see in social media feeds. And they do this because they want people to stay hooked and staying on the platforms. And therefore, they only want to push content in their news feeds of content that people want to see. So if you post something and it gets no likes, people don't really care about it, that post isn't going to be prioritized in news feeds. On the other hand, however, if you do post content that people are engaging with and seem to like, then there is a good chance that you will get more engaged, or then you will get more views of your posts because it kind of builds upon itself. And some good ways to position yourself well in the algorithm is to frame your content and captions to be as engaging as possible and to use emotion. Always put yourself in your audience's shoes. So you are not your audience, okay? If you're a vegan activist, odds are your audience isn't just vegan activists. And if you think about who you need to reach to make a bigger difference for animals, it's certainly not other vegan activists. Obviously, there are exceptions. You know, if you have some news story that you need other vegans to share, then that's one thing. But if you're just trying to educate people and to raise awareness and inspire change, you really need to think about who your audience is for that. And so therefore, you need to put yourself in your audience's shoes and really craft captions, craft messaging and everything in a way that's going to work for them. Furthermore, post consistently. So don't post 2 times this week, 10 times next week, 100 times the following week, and then not at all for the following 3 weeks. Post fairly consistently. And a great way to stay on track with this is scheduling posts in advance. I use a platform called Buffer, which I love, and you can use other platforms out there. Many of them are free or have free versions. Also remember that the small stuff matters. So fill out your bio, use the link in your bio, choose your profile photos carefully. And remember that effective social media advocacy is not just posting, okay? It's constant dialogue, constant monitoring of your posts and of the comment section, and engaging with your audience. So important. Let's talk about effective communication in the age of social media. So think about how important it is to effectively communicate with others, okay? There are not a lot of animal activists out there, all right? I wish there were more. We're working on that, but there aren't a lot of us. And so when we are advocating for the animals, when we're communicating about animal issues, we are some of the few people out there who are doing it. And therefore, it is vital that we communicate effectively. It isn't just communication that rubs our ego or that makes us feel good and proud of ourselves. It's communication that leads to a difference for animals. So you want to work to empower your audience and inspire them, not just depress them. You don't want to go all in on any single emotion. So don't be posting nothing but sad content 24/7 or nothing but happy content. Have a blend of different kinds of content. And most importantly, don't be a jerk. When is the last time you saw somebody being a jerk on social media and said, I want to be like that person? That is not a good strategy for vegan activism if you're going around rubbing everybody the wrong way, because people aren't going to want to be like us. And we need other people to be like us so that we can make a better world for animals quicker. Don't make others feel judged. So you really have to remember that you were on a similar journey before you became the animal advocate you are today. Okay. For me, it wasn't one thing that made me go vegan. Okay. It was a variety of things. I can think back to maybe 5 to 10 things that happened to me from adolescence up until I went vegan at age 20 or 21, around there. And it was many different things that finally, and I remember the final thing that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I hate that saying, please forgive me. But, it was often, it's often many things. And so you have to really remember that your audience deserves a certain level of empathy because you were in their shoes once upon a time. And so be the 3 R's when it comes to communicating well on social media. So that's being relatable, because if other people can't relate to you, then it's gonna be hard to inspire them. It's gonna be easier for them to ignore you. And be reasonable. So understand that your audience probably isn't going to go vegan overnight as much as you want them to. But what you can do is accept the fact that you are likely going to chip away at the walls that they've built up about why they shouldn't go vegan. And again, I mentioned for me, it was maybe 5 to 10 things over the course of a decade or more that led me to become vegan. But hey, one of those things might have been somebody saying something to me or making a comment. And so even if your goal is to get everybody who sees your social media posts to go vegan overnight, know that some of those people are at least going to be moving further along the spectrum. Some of those people might go vegan, and some of those people might not do anything at all, but it's a numbers game. So you want to throw as much energy at this advocacy as possible. And then, of course, just be rational. Again, put yourself in your audience's shoes. So which platforms should you focus on, and how much time should you spend on social media? So there are a lot of platforms out there: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, and the list could go on. You really want to figure out, for one, the fact that there's no simple answer for everybody. It really is based on what makes sense for your niche. So if you're into food photography, or if you own a small animal sanctuary, those are 2 massively different kinds of content and different niches. And so it might not make sense for you to be on the same platforms. So you really need to figure out what your particular niche is, what your interests are. Of course, you need to figure out how much value you find in social media. So that's a very complicated, convoluted answer, or it would take a long time to figure out exactly which value, or to describe which platforms offer which value. I will say, just generally, that social media platforms that allow sharing are the best for potentially making the biggest impact for animals, because that allows far, far more people to see your content. So for example, I'll get to this later, so we'll come back to that. Of course, the amount of resources at your disposal. So you may have 2 hours a week to dedicate to social media. You may have 25. So the amount of resources at your disposal is obviously going to control how much time and where you focus on social media. And some social media platforms require more energy. And then, of course, your level of comfortability. But do keep in mind that you will become comfortable with any social media platform if you spend enough time on it. So let's talk about pros and cons for the big 3. So here's Twitter. So the biggest pro to Twitter, the biggest positive thing about Twitter, is that retweets hugely extend the reach of your tweets. So if your tweet gets a few dozen or a few hundred retweets, that means many hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands or even more of people are going to see your tweet, which means more impact for animals. Another benefit, you can tweet often with little downside. Culturally, it's very appropriate to tweet as much as you want. So you could tweet 20 times a day and people aren't going to be like, wow, this dude tweets too much. You can enter into dialogue with almost anybody. So pretty much anybody who's culturally relevant is on Twitter. If they're not, then they're out of the mainstream. They're kind of weird. And so that allows you to enter into dialogue with anybody. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to respond to you, but you can at least, throw your opinion out there. And then, of course, it's very popular with journalists, politicians, and celebrities. But especially, it's important to mention journalists, because that means that if you are somebody who likes media or has, a knack for media, you can find tons of people out there, journalists out there. Twitter is the journalist platform. The downsides of Twitter is that it's very popular with a lot of people, and totally a mystery to others. I'm sure some of you are watching this thinking, oh, I love Twitter. This is so cool. And some of you are like, what the hell? Like, I have no interest in Twitter. So it's kind of love it or hate it. Many people tweet a lot, so it's kind of hard for you to stand out. There's a lot of misinformation on the platform, and of course, a lot of trolls out there too. Instagram pros and cons. Instagram, very community focused. You have very consistent feel and experience every time you open the app. And it's very easy to find like-minded individuals through location tags, tag posts, through hashtags. You can find vegan activists, vegan advocate, whatever you're looking for, vegan food. If you want to find a vegan hashtag vegan donut burger, which I just made up off the top of my head, I bet that hashtag has a few dozen tweets, maybe more. And you could find whatever you want. The downside is that there's no share function. And I talked earlier about the importance of having share functions. So that means pretty much everybody seeing your Instagram posts are people who have already opted in to seeing you. Then, of course, you're speaking mostly to an audience who has already opted in to seeing your content. Facebook, pros and cons. So first of all, number of users worldwide. I think there's 2 billion social media or Facebook users. It's just absolutely massive. It's been around for so long, so it's integrated deeply into your life. It's pretty much where all of your family, friends, colleagues are. You can easily connect with all these people. Messenger is a great way to communicate with others. Facebook events are definitely a thing and have been for over a decade and still will be for many years. Facebook groups are for whatever niches you want, whether it's for veganism, for some sort of personal interest. There are tons of groups out there. And then, of course, the incredible reach, and that's through the share button. So, I heard, I think that when animal liberation has one day been achieved in hopefully just a few years, but probably a few decades or more, I think that people will look back and think that one of the unsung heroes of that era, of that achievement, was the share button on Facebook. The share button on Facebook has led to so much change. I have a post that I posted a month ago or so that has been seen over 10 million times. And it just keeps on getting engagement. I posted it over a month ago, and still I'll go to Facebook and I'll refresh my notifications. And every time I refresh it, just more and more notifications are rolling in about this one single post. So Facebook really has the opportunity to change so many people's hearts and minds. The downside of Facebook, the main downside, is that the algorithm is cutthroat. So if your content isn't getting good engagement, it is just not going to be seen by pretty much anybody. So you really have to prioritize good content. So let's talk. I think I'll maybe about 10 more minutes or so. That way we have plenty of time for questions and answers. So how to get more followers? First of all, post good content. Super obvious, but very important. People want to follow accounts that post good content. Of course, ask yourself before every time you post, is this good? Is it interesting? Is my audience going to care? Shares and retweets are how your posts go into the news feeds of others, how people discover your account. External engagement, so liking and replying to posts from others to draw attention to your profile. And then engaging internally, so liking and replying to the comments and replies from others on your own post. And then, of course, all the little things. So much of the stuff within this presentation, do on a more regular basis, and you'll find that you will get more followers. What actions to take on social media? Share posts from others. So these are some posts that I've done on Twitter in recent years, and people retweeted them. As you could tell, 10,000 the first one, 1,000 the second, 7,000 the next. And this led to tens of thousands, or even the first one over 1 million views. And that is other people sharing my posts. So you can share other people's posts. Engage in dialogue. So this is me replying to the tweet of somebody and making a comment about their consumption of dairy, and actually my tweet ended up getting more engagement than their tweet. Talk about your origin story. Talk about how you became the activist you are today. I already told you my story about my mom, and this is me telling people about it on Facebook a couple of years ago. Post great plant-based food. Use humor. Of course, make sure to expose cruelty. So you really use a variety of messaging. Talk about your relationships with animals. So this was my cat named Scoop. He was he only had 3 legs and was the best boy ever. I love this cat so much. He played a really pivotal role in me as a young person to become more focused on animal issues. When you ask people to take action for animals, ask them to take action on the platform that they are on. In this case, this is me asking for retweets on Twitter. So I didn't say, hey, go to my Facebook page, or hey, go to this random website. I asked people to retweet this tweet. I did so, and this tweet was seen by over 7 million people. Know your audience, okay? We talked a bit about knowing your audience, and you have to know that your audience is comprised of a variety of people, a diverse group of people. And so you can't just have the same messaging all the time. You can't just say, go vegan, go vegan, go vegan on every single post. I mean, you can, but you're going to be missing a lot of other people who might be receptive to different kinds of messaging. You don't necessarily have to say just go vegetarian or go meatless Mondays, but if you can say, hey, consider the idea of stopping eating animals, or consider the idea of veganism. Have you ever heard of veganism? What are your thoughts about it? Just have a variety of kinds of messaging, because having variety and diversity in your messaging is super, super important. Shine a light on personal achievements. Even if this makes you feel cringy, which is understandable, it's really important because it gives yourself more credibility in influencing other people. And what is her job as activists? To influence other people, obviously in the efforts to save animals. Our job isn't, honestly, our job isn't to influence other people. Our job is to save animals. But how do we save animals? By influencing other people. How do we influence other people? By shining a light on the things that make us the effective activists we are. By getting people to understand why it's important for them to take animal issues seriously. Remember that less is more. I would love to scream from the mountaintops about the billion reasons that people should go vegan. Sometimes less is more. This tweet, for example, is literally a 5-second video of a dog with a piglet. It's 7 words followed by 1 emoji. And the tweet had over 3,000 replies, over 6,000 retweets, over 30,000 likes, and over 1 million views. So simple, such a simple and direct message. And this is something that anybody can do. Take your messaging and kind of whittle it down to something simple. You don't always have to be simple, but try to be simple at times. And when in doubt, of course, feel free to post about piglets, okay? Just piglets people love, they will eat it up. Don't be accusatory. Again, we talked about, knowing your audience. We talked about understanding that you are not your audience. We have to remember that everybody is on a different path. And we can make people feel something and feel inspired to change without simultaneously making them feel accused of being a terrible person. Because oftentimes when you take this approach, when you shame people, it can backfire. And we don't want it to backfire. We want to whittle away the walls that people have up between animal liberation and themselves, and pointing a finger and making people feel judged and making people feel like they think that you think that you're better than them. That can end up hurting our cause rather than helping. For profile photos, think about the profile photos that you choose to use. So for me, I use something that's fairly professional for Twitter, something that my friends and family would appreciate for Facebook, and something maybe a little bit artsy or edgy on Instagram. So feel free to use some sort of similar determining factor of which profile photos you choose. Certainly don't just use the blank default that social media platforms offer. Don't put all of your vegan just eggs into one basket. Now, what I mean by this is don't spend all of your time focusing on just building up one single social media platform. Because if you do that, and that social media platform goes belly up, or loses all of its investors, or just falls out of favor with the general public, you will have spent all of that time building up your presence on that platform for nothing. I mean, think about the last time any of you heard from MySpace Tom. He had a lot of followers on MySpace, but where is he nowadays once MySpace became irrelevant? Organize your content. So you, as an animal activist, probably have a ton of photos and videos of animals. Maybe you hanging out with animals in an animal sanctuary, or undercover footage from a factory farm or something. Have that content in one place. This way you can share with other people. You can access it from any device from anywhere in the world. This stuff will be organized in different folders. I really, really recommend using something like a Google Team Drive. Post a blend of various kinds of posts. So don't just do sad photos all the time. Do videos, do photos, do text, do links, do polls. And then for the kinds of content, do happy content, sad content, educational content, funny content, news content. Do a variety of types of posts and content of posts to always keep your audience guessing as to what's coming next and to keep them interested. Don't post too much or too little. Why? If you post too little, people are going to forget you exist. You're going to drop out of the algorithm. If you post too much, people are going to be annoyed by you. People are going to unfollow you. They're going to mute you. They're not going to pay attention to what you have to say. Find the right amount and post within that window. Other things to consider, maybe take a screenshot of this or a photo of it with your phone. I will really quickly go through these. Post natively to each platform. So, social media platforms allow you to make it easy to cross-post natively or cross-post automatically. Don't do that. Post natively to each platform. Late morning, early afternoon is generally the best time to post, and that's for the time zone that you're in and where the time zone where most of your followers are. Have concise captions. I have an 80-20 rule, so about 80% of my captions are short and sweet, 20% are longer, maybe 3 sentences or maybe even 3 paragraphs. Make posts emotional. Don't look at social media as just documentation. If you go out in some activist adventure, maybe don't post 200 photos of it. Maybe post the best 5 or 10, or even the best single photo or video. Use emojis. So even if you're uncomfortable with it, get used to it. Emojis are so effective, and they are the language of the internet. Ideally, 1 to 3 is ideal, never more than 3 in a row. Otherwise, people are just going to ignore them. Use social media network. Put your Facebook friends into lists so that you can easily find them for geographic purposes or other kinds of purposes. Remember that most users on social media are just observers. So they're not going to like, comment, share, or anything. They're literally just observing your posts, which sounds kind of creepy, right? But the majority of social media users are actually not actively engaging at all. So for one, remember that a lot of people are going to see your posts who you never even hear from. And then for 2, don't be disheartened when you only have 3 likes on your post, because that could mean that dozens of people saw your post. I highly recommend making your accounts public. You're really limiting the reach of your posts and the potential for impact if your posts are private. Tag people when you post. It's a great way to get them to engage with your posts, to send people to accounts that you support. Pin valuable posts to the top of your profile. You can do this with Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram now. When you share other people's posts, add your own caption because people care about what you think, not what some stranger thinks. When you invite people to Facebook events, invite in waves, starting with the most, the most likely to attend. Have an experimental mindset. So always just throw random stuff at social media and see what sticks. This could, just be experimental. Video content is best. It's definitely the future of social media. Reels, especially Reels, TikToks, those kinds of videos, especially. I am not a huge proponent of ads if you have the time to dedicate to focusing on organic engagement. So I would say ads are only worth it if organic engagement is unlikely and your post is very, very important to you in your mission. Experiment with new features. So when new features come on board for social media platforms, make sure to mess around with them because you're going to be prioritizing news feeds. And whatever you do, don't click the like button on your own posts. We already know that you like the post, otherwise you wouldn't have posted it in the first place. When it comes to dealing with trolls and endless debates, just say, I'm out of here. Why? Because by spending all day, every day, engaging with one or two people who are trolling you, you are likely not even going to change their minds. But even if you do, that is going to come at the cost of wasting a lot of your time you could be reaching other people who are more open to your message. I have 2 mini assignments for you. So again, please take a photo of this or a screenshot. I want you to spend an hour looking at how successful organizations and other animal advocates are doing on social media. What do you notice they are doing and aren't doing? Because you do not need to reinvent the wheel. I'm not saying go and copy someone else's approach, but look at what's working for others and allow that to influence how you choose to use social media. Then spend 30 minutes looking at your own social media. Go to your Facebook, your Twitter, whatever, your TikTok, whatever, and look at your posts. Which posts have gotten more engagement, more likes, more comments, more shares? And why do you think that is? Which ones haven't performed? Learn. This is how you're going to learn what's working and what isn't. That way in the future, you can post more of the content that does well rather than not so much that doesn't do well. I want to offer you all 15% off any of my self-guided online courses that I developed with Advocacy Collaborative. So over the last year and a half, I've released 3 fully self-guided online courses with Advocacy Collaborative. The first one is focusing on just general social media advocacy. The second course is on Twitter, and the third course is just on Instagram. And these are courses with a ton of content. I go way deeper, give you way more resources than we've covered in this 45, 50-minute presentation. And in these courses, I really teach you how to get more followers, how to get more impact for animals. And feel free to enroll. And if you want 15% off, use the code AAM15. I will leave you all with this quote from the late, great Maya Angelou. It's that I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Why is this important? This is important because social media advocacy is all about getting people to feel something, to feel empathy and change in their heart to make a difference for animals. And you, as somebody on social media, as an animal advocate who's using social media, you have the power to make a greater difference for animals. Thank you.
Wow.
I'm going to hand it over to Michelle to do questions and answers.
Yes. Thank you, John, so much. I hope everybody took note of your contact information, your social media information. You can put it in the chat again if you'd like to, or maybe Trey will do that. So indeed, we are going to open up for that. I mean, that was just chock full of information. I learned so much already, and I'm sure we have lots of questions. So if you'd like to ask a question of John, you can hit the hand raise icon if you can find that. If not, you can just raise your hand. And I will try to call on you and try to get the questions answered in order. So I'm going to go to questions in the chat first, John, from Deb. Oh, wait, sorry, they're coming in so quickly from Estrella. Oh, she asked if the recording will be available. Yes, this recording, we're recording, and it will be on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe, Animal Activism Mentorship on YouTube. Next question is, John, from Deb. Do you think TikTok is worth the negativity and superficiality found there?
You muted, John.
Sorry about that. I do think that TikTok advocacy is worth it if it fits the niche that you're in. And I think that most things could be fit pretty well there. I think that I think that animal cruelty activism is a little bit tougher there. For one, there's stronger censorship on TikTok and other platforms. And also, it's hard to make a fun, bouncy TikTok about, animals suffering on factory farms. That said, I think it's still worth trying and experimenting with, but there's lots of kinds of vegan advocacy that would work on TikTok. And TikTok is a very, very popular platform and becoming more and more popular, especially with young people. And young people are so important to reach in vegan advocacy for a variety of reasons. Like, they have many years of purchasing power in front of them. They often have large social networks. They aren't stuck in their ways yet. So the variety of reasons why TikTok is a good platform to focus on. And, honestly, I don't care the superficiality on the platforms. It doesn't really affect us. If anything, that makes us stand out more as activists who have integrity and are doing a good, solid job of raising awareness about these issues. Good question.
Thanks, Deb. Next question. Anybody would like to ask a question of John? Raise your hand or put it in the chat. Any questions? You covered this topic so well. Yeah, right? Everybody's still processing all the information. Alexander says he's thinking. Okay, here's a question from Trey. What's the best way to handle frustration with social media?
I think the best way to handle frustration with social media is to, the variety of answers depending on what the frustrations are about. But I think in general, I think having realistic expectations and understanding that you're not going to make the world go vegan overnight. I want the world to go vegan overnight. I would give my left kidney I would give my organs, okay, to make the world go vegan overnight. It's not going to happen, okay? So you have to understand that if you're spending time on social media and you're an animal advocate, then you have to understand that there is going to be trolls along the way. There are going to be people who aren't open to your message, and at times posts that you think are really important might not get that much engagement. But you got to think about the people you are reaching. It's not about the people you aren't reaching, it's about the people you are reaching. And you are going to make a difference using social media. I mean, it's common sense. If 100 people see your post, of course we don't think 100 people are going vegan, but there are a few dozen people at least who will have changed hearts and minds, and pretty much all the people will have not thought about animal advocacy and factory farming and veganism and whatever that day. And I guarantee you a few of those people will likely go vegan, or at least be significantly more open to moving along the spectrum. So, kind of accepting that we aren't going to create a vegan world overnight, but we are going to make somewhat of an impact. So maybe kind of just almost limiting your expectations is one of the ways to manage your frustrations. Good question, Trey.
Question from Silence is Violence. Why do you think people want us vegans to stay calm about animal rights, but to be rightfully outraged about human rights?
I don't think that too many people really deeply think this. I think it's just a common cop out for people trying to find flaws in our advocacy, in our ideology, because they want to justify their own behavior. So I really wouldn't put too much stock in people saying this. And yeah, so I really wouldn't worry about this too much. And, the best thing is, you can worry about both simultaneously. You can worry about animal rights and human rights at the same time. These are not mutually exclusive.
Estrella asks, do you have a forum where I can bounce off ideas on what is the best way to implement a concept or idea and people can share from their experience?
That's a good question. I think it's worth mentioning that I do social media consulting professionally. Should anybody be interested, and if they are, feel free to contact me on my website. There's some details there, johnoberg.org, and I'd be happy to have you bounce off ideas there, should you be interested.
Gigi asks, how do you keep going every day? Example, so many posts. How do you deal with the egotistical or distracting aspects of social media?
A few ways, and really good question here. So for one, I really try to limit how much I guess I try to limit how much expectation I have. I want people to go vegan overnight. I've already talked about this, but I know that people aren't. So I'm just happy with whatever engagement I get. And I know that, that's engagement that wouldn't be happening if I wasn't doing this sort of activism. I think about, something I really try to do is focus on what's in my control rather than what's out of my control. And so, I try to focus on the impact that I can make for animals rather than all of the billions of animals that I'm not going to be able to have an impact on. I just try to think of the good that I can do. And then lastly, well, I guess it's two-parter. One, I have outside interests. And so I think that it's unhealthy to be only focused on animal rights activism 24/7, because you're going to burn out and you're not going to be as effective as you otherwise could be. So I think it's important to have outside interests. I go to the gym, I play soccer, I watch some soccer, I listen to metal. Those are like my main interests and loves in life. And so whatever interests you have, I think you should run with. Do not feel guilty when you do them. The world's a very, very dark place for animals, but if we are only focused on our sadness and the darkness, it's going to really prohibit us from being the best activists for the animals that we can be. And so there's that aspect of the two-parter, but then also the other part of the two-parter is to keep in mind that you should kind of have limitations for yourself. So for me, I try to keep the weekends to myself. Monday through Friday, the vast majority of the day, I'm doing animal advocacy stuff. And this is mainly fueled by the donations I get from people. I have a donor box, which you can sign up for on my website if you want to support my work. And I'm only able to do this work Monday through Friday and beyond because of the great supporters out there who believe in my work. But because I want to be able to do this for the next 60 years, not the next 60 days, I am not focusing every single day, all day. I just try to keep my weekends to myself. Obviously, there are going to be times when this changes and there's things that come up, but I think that every animal advocate really does need to have some self-care and focus on keeping this work sustainable for the long haul.
Great answer. We have a bunch of questions coming in now. Kim asks, for Facebook, would you recommend using a personal profile page, a page, or a group?
Good question. That is a very, very good question. And it depends on the kind of advocacy you do, Kim. I think in general, you have if you're going to focus a lot of your energy on Facebook advocacy throughout a week, if you could post once per day, let's say you have I don't know what kind of resources you have at your disposal, Kim, but if you have the energy to post maybe once per day or 5 times per week minimum, I would say start a Facebook page. That's good. If you are the kind of person who's only going to be advocating, posting on social media or on Facebook once every few weeks about animal advocacy, then I would say maybe stick to your personal profile, but also, of course, keep in mind that probably most people you're connected with on a personal profile are not people who are in the vegan space. So you don't want to overdo it. You kind of don't want to you just posting about veganism, 50 times in a year. That's a lot of people are probably going to unfollow you. So of course, make sure to post about other stuff as well in there. But I mean, if you have the resources to start a Facebook page, I would recommend doing it. And then with groups, I think groups are cool. Groups are interesting because they're already focused on various niches, very specific interests often. I mean, there's thousands of vegan groups already out there, right? So you don't really want to go to Facebook groups and promote veganism. You want to go to places where there aren't lots of vegans and promote veganism. So you got to get kind of creative about how you do this. I think Reddit is a good example about this with subreddits, where there are a million subreddits out there for so many niche interests. And I think that Facebook groups are similar to the subreddits on Reddit, where I think that you can basically carve out a message surrounding whatever group it is. I talked about metal earlier. There are lots of vegan metal bands out there, or bands with vegan members. If I wanted to take this approach with metal, I could post a music video from a band that I like who has a vegan member and say do you hear this new song from so-and-so and their guitarist is vegan? How cool is that? It's a good subtle way of getting in there. And so, I think that groups can be a good creative way in which you can advocate for animals. Good question, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Deb asks, what do you think about YouTube? It seems very effective, but expenses and expertise are involved.
Yeah, so YouTube is not the kind of platform where you can just hop on and just post whatever. Like Facebook, I mean, many of us were on Facebook back in the mid to late 2000s, where you had a status update and everybody was doing it, and you're posting about Farmville, and you were posting about just random pictures from your vacation and stuff. Everybody had a very long history of doing random posting on other platforms. YouTube requires a lot more than just whatever comes to mind. It requires a lot of thoughts. It's got to be video, and it's likely got to be long form video. And so it does take more expertise. I think that if your advocacy, I think that in order to create a vegan world, we need vegan activists to figure out what they're really good at and do the hell out of that. Okay. I am bad at the vast majority of things in the world, really bad at a lot of it. Okay. But there are a few things I'm decent at, and I've figured those out, and I've really tried doing them a lot on social media. Okay. And so I think that if you have a wonderful talent of being able to tell 15, 20, 30-minute stories about animals, or you have an animal sanctuary nearby where you could do an interview of the sanctuary founder, or spliced in with videos of you at the sanctuary. If you have a ton of content out there that would make sense for maybe long form video, then I think YouTube is great. There are a lot of creators out there who reach a lot of people, and you can even have it monetized if you are successful enough. So, I think that YouTube is a good platform to focus on if it makes sense. For me, the vast majority of content I'm pushing out there are short clips And it's usually, clips of animal sanctuaries or undercover footage and stuff. So it really wouldn't make so much sense to be posting to YouTube. If I had the resources, if I had more donors, where I could hire somebody to, maybe hit all the social media platforms, then maybe I'd do it. But, we talked earlier about the resources that you have at your hand. And for me, I don't have those resources. But if you have those resources and it makes sense for you, then go for it.
A lot of great questions. Alexander asks, how do you deal with certain social media that has robots and take down or mute your stuff, but threaten to delete your account? Social media is sensitive to things we post or say.
Well, every platform's different in terms of what they allow on the platform. So, I talked earlier about TikTok being a little bit more, likely to censor. But something I do is I don't post overly violent content, and I don't post things with blood and gore, really. And not because I don't want people to see it, but mainly because that's the kind of thing that's not allowed on social media platforms. And if you are consistently posting things that aren't allowed, then your platforms could be damaged. But the added benefit to posting stuff that maybe isn't so brutal is that, like, the sad stuff, maybe, posting a piglet alone in the corner of a factory farm. That's very sad, not graphic, but can still make the impact. But also, it's not so brutal that people are just turning away. Because if you're posting like an animal with their throat slit and there's blood pouring out everywhere and there's a knife and it's just horrible stuff, which I do see animal activists post. Like, there is some benefit to that, but there is also some risk, and there's also some good chance that people are just kind of going to turn away from it and not accept the message at all. So it's really important for us to be mindful of what is kind of allowed on social media platforms, and also to keep in mind that farm animals have it so bad. Okay, we don't need to post the worst of it. Okay, because we can post this other stuff, this other horrible stuff, and you can tell stories. Like some of my most important, most viral content has my posts that have gone as viral as possible are not like the most brutal things. Like, actually, the video that I posted a month or two ago that's got over 10 million views now, and the engagement is still coming in. That is actually a collection of it's a collection of art and in this art, it's like basically where humans and animals are switched. And so, like, you see like animals abusing humans in the way that humans abuse animals, and it really gets people to think, and really has struck a nerve with people. It's one of my most successful posts I've ever done in 10 years, and it didn't require me walking on the edge, posting something extremely brutal.
Great question. Yuki from Japan asks, it's great your posts get millions of views. Is it really only the quality of the post, or what other important reasons are there that some posts get so many views?
Good question. So the answer is sort of complicated in the sense that, like, I didn't just start my social media platforms yesterday and post this stuff. I've spent years building a rapport with my audience. I've spent years building my audience. I've spent years really tweaking my approach. So, I don't want any of you to expect to reach millions of people. And if you don't, you're disappointed. I do not want you to be disappointed. I think that you should be excited if you just double your reach. I think going from reaching 100 people in a year to 200 people is awesome. And so incredibly important. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, I think that also I've just really looked at what works and what doesn't on social media. And I've really just tried forming my approach based on that. It can be very easy to get kind of stuck in our ways on social and anything in life. If you don't change, then you're going to get left behind. And for me, I've really kind of tweaked my approach over the years and done so in a way that I think has led me to get more and more things. I've also had an experimental mindset. So I try a lot of things and see what works. And a lot of things bomb. And that's okay. It's part of it. Also, it's a numbers game. So I talked about that viral post from a month or two ago. The vast majority of my posts in the weeks before and after that got 0.01% of the amount of engagement that post got. Okay. So it's throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks. And it's knowing that like this post might not go viral. This post might not go viral. This post might not go viral, but hey, this post did. And it's about those posts that do go viral, do get a lot of engagement that really, really matter the most.
So we have a little more time if there are some more questions. But John, I was wondering, have you gotten any, feedback from followers who've actually gone vegan, where they let you know they've
yeah, all the time.
Posts and what do they point to when they say what made them go vegan in terms of you being the bridge to that?
Yeah, if you give me a second, I can pull up a few examples of things that people have said to me recently. And let's see. Somebody messaged me on Facebook and said, I'd like you to know that me stumbling upon your page today has been the final sign I need to go vegan. Somebody said, John, your tweets were one of the things that inspired me to finally become vegan after being vegetarian for over 30 years. Somebody said, I was a vegetarian for a long time. 3 years ago, one of your tweets turned me into a vegan instantly. Your work is inspiring. I'll give you one more. I'm a vegan because of you. I started to see your posts on my newsfeed, and over time, they pulled me in like, wow, I never considered this before. I developed more empathy for animals, and I changed my lifestyle. You did this. So this is the kind of thing that I guarantee you, all of you who use social media, this is the impact that you are making. You might not always hear it. I'm fortunate enough to have been able to reach a lot of people. And so, obviously, you're probably only going to hear from 0.01% of the people who you actually impact. But luckily, I've reached a lot of people, so I do get to hear from people a lot. Even if you haven't heard from people, I swear to you, you are making an impact. Like Trey mentioned at 8:18, so a couple of minutes ago in the chat, like if 20 people see your post, that's 20 people who otherwise wouldn't be thinking about animal advocacy that day. I guarantee you they wouldn't be thinking about it. And some of those people are likely going to be impacted. Even if it's just one, that's one person who you have impacted, which means dozens, hundreds, thousands of animals saved. So the potential for impact by using social media well is incredibly massive.
Yeah, and then you can share about those impact stories as well back on social media.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, if anybody has any impact stories of their own, feel free to put that in the chat if you'd like to. Are there any other questions? It's such a broad topic.
Well, you know what? Alexander, I think they may have accidentally DM'd me. Maybe they meant to put this in the chat, but they asked if my family is vegan. And most of my family isn't alive anymore. Wow, it sounds morbid. But my uncle is not vegan, but he's very supportive. And my mom, I would love to say, she was. So she and I, obviously I talked about how she instilled compassion for animals in me. Well, it was many years later when I had gone vegan, and her and I were driving somewhere, and you know how like you just kind of like you want your parents to entertain themselves sometimes. I think we were driving somewhere far, and I handed her a leaflet, just like entertain herself. And after a few minutes, I heard, and this is a vegan outreach leaflet. This is when I was working for them. And I heard sniffling. Okay. And I look over and I see my mom crying, and she says, Johnny, I just can't do it anymore. I can't eat animals anymore. And so she went vegetarian there, and she was vegetarian for the last 5 years of her life before she passed away. And so, I'm really honored to have been able to repay the favor of compassion to my mom, as she is the one who instilled compassion for animals in the first place in me many, many years ago.
Yeah, wonderful. And I mean, so I'm going to ask a hopeful question, which is, when do you think we'll achieve a vegan world?
I don't love to just put like a specific year on it. Obviously the sooner the better. But I am very optimistic about the future because veganism is becoming mainstream. The V word and plant-based and stuff, these words were like this just a few years ago, and now I'm seeing them become mainstream. Even things that don't make sense to be considered like plant-based, I'm seeing are being called plant-based, which just, in marketing, which means that we've come a long way when like plant-based and vegan is now a good thing rather than a bad thing. That shift alone is absolutely huge. So I think the mainstream is important. That's number one reason I'm optimistic. Number two is the mainstreaming of more plant-based foods, and that's often by fast food companies introducing vegan food. So Panda Express just introduced vegan orange chicken, which I had last night for the first time, and holy crap, it's awesome. I highly recommend all of you go get it. It was so much better than I was even expecting. And that is like just a sign that the times are changing. Okay. And then the third thing is the invention of and the eventual, hopefully the mainstreaming of cultured meat. So meat made from cells. This is going to be the thing that ends factory farming. Okay, because we're going to eventually, hopefully, get the price point down to something that where meat is just actual animal meat is just far too expensive, and over time it will just make almost no sense to eat actual animals, and money talks. And so as much as I want it to be all about compassion for animals, I think that the introduction of cultured meat is going to absolutely change the game for animals. And I'm so excited for that day. And we're seeing progress in that field every single day, every single hour, really. It's really a beautiful thing to see.
I like those predictions. We'll take those to the bank. So we're going to wrap up relatively soon. So I just a question from Ellie: what are trigger words on Facebook? And I think that'll be our last question tonight.
Cool. Yeah. I can't say what exactly the trigger words are. I would recommend looking that up, but I would say, anything that's like overtly offensive, swear words I would avoid. Calling people names, I think, is something that's really, really harmful. I see people get their accounts suspended all the time for making like vague threats. Even just saying like, you're a POS. Obviously you never want to do that anyway, because that's not going to be an effective form of advocacy. And so it's something that you should really be sensitive about. And, don't waste your time talking to trolls anyway. I mean, it's just not worth your time or energy. So you should really focus on reaching as many people as possible rather than just a few people who want to rub you the wrong way. So thank you everybody so much for your time. This has been a thrill. I loved speaking to all of you and You all had such amazing questions, and I saw so many of you shaking your heads and stuff, and that makes me feel really good. So I appreciate all of you, and thank you, Michelle, for the invitation, having me here. Thank you, Trey, for doing the technical work. Thank you all for spending, an hour and a half out of your day to learn more about how to be more effective as an animal advocate. And should anybody want to stay in contact with me, please follow me on social media. If they want to do social media consulting, contact me via form on my website. And if anybody feels, or if anybody wants to enroll in my courses, again, please use code AAM15 at advocacycollab.com, and they can enroll in one of my courses for 15% off. And then, of course, if anybody wants to support my work for animals, you can go to donorbox.org/John Oberg.
Thank you, John, so much. I just have a couple of things before we wrap up completely. And just to announce, our next upcoming workshop is next Thursday, September 29th. We have how to dismantle the animal agriculture industry using strategic focus campaigns. You can find that information on our Facebook page, there's an event page for that. Also, I wanted to announce something sort of far ahead in next year. Our next live event will take place in Colorado, in the Denver area. The Colorado Convergence will take place June 24th through July 1st, 2023. So it's never too early to start making your plans. No experience required for these live events. And I want to, thank all of you for being here. Thank you, John, for your time and wisdom. Thank you, Trey, for working the back end. Thank you, everyone, for the work you're doing for the animals. Feel free to share your handles, in the chat for each other, so we can follow each other as well as follow John and follow AAM, please. If you're interested in becoming a mentor or mentee or want to get more involved, please reach out to any AAM mentor or visit our website, animalactivismmentorship.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like and share. Meantime, we'll add you to our email newsletter list as well. So that's pretty much it. So from both Electra and I, thank you everybody very much. Until next time, everybody stay strong and live vegan.